Everyone, welcome back to another edition to the Point Podcast. Everybody's doing well on this holiday Monday. It's been a minute since we spoke, but I'm enjoying my time here on the long weekend. But keeping up on the world of sports, really the Olympics has gripped me. I am a fan of it, but it takes me a while to kind of get into the swing of things. The schedule makes it difficult, but really over the past couple of days, where you got DeGrasse running yesterday morning, you had the women's soccer team this morning. It really it captivated me, and it was really interesting. Unfortunately for Andre DeGrasse, he came up short with the bronze medal. Even though and I'll give him credit, he did run his personal best yesterday. So you can't do better than your best. That's the best he's ever done. He loses to an Italian and to an American, but really what cost him that race was his qualifying time. He ended up in the 9th lane, which is the toughest, and he had to make up too much time. And unfortunately for him, he just kind of ran out of it. So kind of tough luck there for Andre DeGrasse. But this morning really was one of the best moments so far of the Olympics for me. Obviously, Penny Oleksiak has been the story. She's now tied as the most decorated Olympian in Canadian history, male or female. And, I could go into semantics about how many gold medals she's won and everything like that, but I won't, because it's a good story and I don't want to kill everybody's mood here on a Monday. But this morning was the antithesis of what Canadians love, and that is us beating the Americans. If there's a bigger rival than the United States to Canada in any sport, I really want to pick your brain, because I don't get where you're coming from. Russia's not the biggest rival. Name it. It doesn't matter to me. The United States is who I want to beat at every event, and not just beat them by a little, beat them by a lot, because I don't like them. I know American people. It's not like that. It's just pride. I want to kick their ass every time we go up against them. And this morning, it really was the true underdog story. Us as Canadians, we were average Joe's gym. The United States, for the longest time, have been, the global gym purple cobras, if you will, if you're familiar with the movie Dodgeball, where we've gotten really close to beating the Americans. In 2012, goes in extra time. They beat us narrowly. And it was a crushing loss where Christine Sinclair had a great game. But ultimately, we came up short. We bring home a bronze medal. 2016 in Rio, we play them again, and we lose in the semifinal. We come home with a bronze medal. But it was different today. Today, we defeated the Americans. It was such a great moment where our women just brought it. Fleming scores in the 75th minute. We hang on to win the game 1-0. We are on to the gold medal game. We are playing for gold against Team Sweden on Thursday night. And I couldn't be more jacked up for this. This is what you play for. We have a guarantee of winning a medal, which for everybody out there, that's a great, another great story. We're guaranteed silver. So for my mother and the people who count other medals, that's fantastic. But if our women's soccer team could bring home a gold medal while defeating the United States along the way, while defeating Sweden, who beat the United States in the preliminary round to get there, this would be one of the most iconic moments in Olympic history. Soccer is not exactly what you think of when you think of Canada. We would be on a world stage and win a gold medal in a sport where us Canadians, we're better at the Winter Olympics. That's just a fact. Our climate, our athletes, you get hockey in there. We're better set up to succeed, to win gold medals. In the pool, we've gotten better with the likes of Penny Oleksiak and different athletes who have helped us advance in that lane, so to speak. But to win at soccer, where our men's program has been a joke for decades, our women's team has always been very good. But we've never been the United States. We haven't been Brazil. But to beat a Brazilian team, to beat the United States, and then beat Sweden in the final and be recognized on the world stage for being the best, that's a new height that I didn't think we could ever achieve as Canadians in soccer, in that particular sport. And for Christine Sinclair, who just may be the greatest female soccer player ever, to cap off her career by getting a gold medal at age 38 at yet another Olympics, it's the pièce de résistance. It's the cherry on top to an already beautifully decorated career. And this would just do a whole lot for Canada. We're seeing soccer players from Canada in the men's game, play for Manchester United, play for Paris Saint-Germain, go over to Europe where football over there is the sport. We can talk. I love American football. I believe it's the best sport in the world, and I don't even think it's that close. But in Europe, if you look at worldwide popularity, soccer is the most popular sport, and it's not close. For us to even get on that platform to be recognized is a major achievement. And we still have to win the game. With all that being said, silver would be nice. Sure. To me, no, it's worthless. But it'd be nice for some people, soccer moms and my mother. But to win gold, it sets a precedent, and we need to cap it off. Because everything I just said is erased. Because if we lose in the gold medal game, then we're just Canada being Canada. It sounds harsh, but I believe that will be the narrative. And I think it's fair. Canada, they're a good little team. They're a good soccer team, but man, we don't really take them seriously. We let them get to a final, but they got there. Good. They could bring home silver. But Megan Rapinoe, the captain for Team USA, said, I don't think I've ever lost to Canada in my career. It's still that disrespect. But if we win that gold medal, we can tell everyone collectively to shove it, because we did it. And Thursday night, I think the game starts at 11 o'clock. I'm watching it. Yeah, I work on Friday. I don't care. I'm staying up and I'm watching that game. I'm PVRing it. I gotta see it, because it will be history in the making to see this group of women succeed like few other have. Our women's hockey team winning gold, that's what we expect. Losing to the United States, getting silver in a World Hockey Championship, which kicks off in less than a month, is not a successful tournament. Maybe I'm wrong. I had a conversation with my sister about that, but I think that's the precedent we set. Whenever there's a Canadian hockey team, men or women, not bringing home a gold medal is a loss. That may sound unfair. That's just the way it is. And I humbly believe that. And I think that pressure is fair, because guess what? We're Canadian and we're the best at hockey. So we should win. When the men lost the World Juniors last year, where everybody thought, they're just going to run roughshod over the States, and we lost, that was a failure of a tournament. Yes, it doesn't change that the kids play great and it's a good story, but brass tacks, that's a loss. That's a failure of a tournament. And I believe it'll be the same narrative. It can change in an instant. We aren't the joke. We aren't just the good little, the little engine that could anymore. We are the alpha. We can put ourselves in that conversation to say, we're here every year. And you know what? We're not just going to settle for bronze and then cheer about it. And, we won the bronze medal this year. Woo! We won gold. And we can kick anybody's ass on the way to that gold medal. And I want to see it. I really hope Christine Sinclair, Jessica Fleming, and the women can cap it off. I'm not a hypocrite. I'm not the biggest soccer fan in the world, but I get invested in this because I know what it means to this country, what magnitude it can have. Andre DeGrasse had the opportunity to be Donovan Bailey. Donovan Bailey was the fastest man in the world. He won the 100-meter. For a period of time, nobody was better than Donovan Bailey on the track. DeGrasse, unfortunately, fell short. He came in third. Hey, you came home with a medal, but there's a difference between being the third fastest or being the third best team in the world and being the best. We can hold that mantle for 3 years until the next Olympics, next Summer Olympics, where our women are the cream of the crop. We are the best. And you know what? If you want to knock us off the top of the mantle, bring it. And that's the opportunity that they have Thursday night. So I encourage everybody to watch that game because I think it's got, a 50-50 chance of being history in the making for this country. Silver would be great. Not good enough. Last night it was announced, Simone Biles announced that she'll be competing in the freestyle event tomorrow, that might be tonight, guys. Tuesday in Tokyo. So it's always like a day ahead here. But she will be competing in it. She has pulled out of 3 other events prior to this one. But she'll be competing and looking for a gold medal to cap off her Olympic career. She's 24. You don't see a lot of 24-year-old gymnasts. So obviously it was just crazy for her to be doing this. But I talked last week about mental health and how I thought she shouldn't compete at this Olympics because obviously I don't question her battling mental health problems. If anybody does, I really think you're making a mountain out of a molehill and you're trying to put her down, and she doesn't deserve that. So I have no problem with her pulling out of the event. However, I do have a problem with her competing tonight or tomorrow. Again, it's the clock gets me all screwed up here. But you say you're dealing with mental health issues, and I'm not questioning that. I believe that wholeheartedly. But how can you just flip the switch? It's been less than a week. And again, I'm not an expert in the field, but I find it hard to believe that you're in the same Olympics. You haven't left. You're still in the Olympic Village. You're still in that same environment. And now you're fine to compete. Naomi Osaka, I talked about her last week. She missed multiple majors. She missed out on prize money. She's showing that this was a big deal for her. It's not just a joke. And people on Fox News can criticize or whatever. But she's backing what she believes. She's dealing with mental health. She's doing what she believes is best for her mental health. So how can we question that? But looking at this situation, I look at Simone Biles and say, well, I have empathy, of course, for what you're dealing with. But how can you just compete now? I don't see that the balance between the two just don't align for me. To pull out of 3 events, and then there's team events and laundry list of things in gymnastics, like swimming, because I think there's too many events for both, but that's a whole other issue. Like figure skating. How can you just compete now? And I really think she should do a presser, and she owes us that answer, because we can have empathy and I will be on her side. I'll 100%, because mental health is real. In the past, and this is not an older generation's fault, it just wasn't discussed. It wasn't as accepting as it is now. And, I'm sure the older generation say, well, we just battled through we didn't talk about our issues. Well, good for you. No, you're tougher than us, I guess, us Gen Zers and millennials and everybody else. But I think she owes us that interview. She owes us that answer, because if I had her on the podcast, that's my first question. I'd introduce her, pleasantries, and then I'm getting to the point. Why? How can you compete after saying you're dealing with some health issues a week later? What happened that you're all of a sudden in a mental state where you're physically able to do this? Because having a mental health issue, having a block, not only can that affect you with mental health, but physically, what if you're not all the way there? This is gymnastics. This is dangerous shit. You can really, really hurt yourself. You need to be mentally at 100 to do this, or you can really hurt yourself. And I look at the situation and think, we're missing something here. And I think as an audience, as journalists, and as just spectators of the sport, we deserve an answer as to why she can't compete last week, but now less than a week later, she can. And that I want to know. So I hope when she does an interview that the journalist has the courage to ask that question, because it is a tough question. It sounds like you're questioning her motives, her competing. And an American journalist probably won't ask that question. I doubt it. Maybe she loses the gold medal, then they might. I think if she wins the gold medal, that won't be asked. But if you're the BBC or somebody else, maybe get that question in there. I think it's a good one to ask. But Simone Biles will compete. We got the women's Olympic soccer team. We have the 200 meters, so track and field will still be ongoing. Xander Schauffele won the gold medal at the men's golf tournament for the Olympics. I talked about this yesterday with a few friends. He's never won a major yet. He's, I think, one of the best golfers in the world. He's finished top 5 4 different times, but hasn't been able to break through. He's had a couple of real heartbreakers at majors, including 2 at Augusta National. But maybe this helps him propel his game, and he can get back. And he's too good to not win a major over the course of his career. He doesn't bomb it, but he's got a great shot, great approach, really smart golfer. And we see him here. He makes 2 clutch putts on 16 and 17 to keep the pressure away. Rory Sabatini made a late push on Sunday. He played very well, shooting 5 under par. He ends up with the silver medal. CT Pan wins the bronze after a 7-man playoff with the likes of Rory McIlroy. I think for Schauffele, obviously the Americans get another gold medal, so but I do like him, so it's tough not to root for the guy. But maybe this is a turning point for him where he wins a big event. He is clutch down the stretch, and maybe next time he's in the lead at a major, he won't feel as worried about the situation. He held on here. He didn't choke. And hopefully that bodes well for him, because I think he's, like I said, he's too good of a golfer. There's so many great ones right now. We've just seen Colin Morikawa win 2 majors in a calendar year. Rory's still there. Spieth is starting to play better. Justin Thomas, I mean, he's going to win another major. He's too good not to. Had a really rough 2021, but I think he can win a major or 2 before his career is over. And there's a lot of young guys. Victor Hovland. If Matt Wolff can figure out his game, I think that he's got all the trappings of a major champion. So it's not going to be easy by any means, but I think Schauffele is right there on the precipice of being a major champion. And we'll just see if he can put it all together. And maybe this Olympic experience will help him in the majors at Augusta, at the PGA. The other 2 come out and be victorious. This weekend, really, it was about, other than the Olympics, it was about Major League Baseball. Hockey, we had a few signings, which I'll touch on today. But Friday, it was the Major League Baseball trade deadline. And it was one of the busiest in recent memory. But, baseball sucks at marketing. They really don't. They really don't seem to want to improve their game. They don't want to make it faster, which that's their prerogative. But I think they're very bad at selling their product. For years, Major League Baseball did not have a set date for a trade deadline, meaning trades could just come in willy-nilly. The set they didn't have a set date. It was like late August. It wasn't trade deadline day, but you had to put players through waivers. Then you could trade a guy. Like Justin Verlander was acquired by the Houston Astros on August 30th. So he spent the last month in Houston. They go on to win the World Series in 2017. But having a set trade deadline, hockey has it, basketball has it. Not only is it good because your media markets can have trade deadline days, they can cover it, but it provides intrigue. It's on the calendar. You can talk about all year. Well, trade deadline is July 30th, and you can set and be ready for it as a fan and as teams. You know where you stand. And this year it really delivered for them because, it's really, I'll start from the teams that offloaded. You look at the Chicago Cubs and the Washington Nationals. Chicago Cubs won World Series in 2016. That was their first World Series in 108 years. And you have the Washington Nationals in 2019 winning the World Series. They had never won a World Series in their franchise history. And both teams decided to part with very, crucial members of the team that won them that World Series. And it's about really looking at this group. The Chicago Cubs, they lose Anthony Rizzo. They lose Javi Baez, aka Almago. They lose, John Lester was already gone, but they lose Chris Bryant, who won World Series MVP. Three of their pillars of their team, really the three, the figureheads to them winning a World Series, have departed the organization. Anthony Rizzo was traded first on Thursday night. He was flipped to the New York Yankees. Really a strong ad for the Yankees. I'll touch on what it's kind of crazy that they're doing this now, but they get Anthony Rizzo. Luke Voigt's been injured all year at first base, so they get Rizzo to play first base. He can also play DH, but he's a guy who can lead off. He's been leading off for a long time in Chicago. He does take a lot of walks, and he's got a really good approach at the plate. He's got a really strong, vision at the plate, and I like the way that he plays, but it improves their position for sure. You look at Javi Baez, El Mago, one of the best shortstops in the game. The way he tracks down the ball, the throws he can make on the run, and just his demeanor. We see him Monday night playing against the Cincinnati Reds, and he hits, a walk-off double off Amir Garrett, and Garrett and him have gotten into tilts before, and he just struts down the first baseline. He's got a lot to say to him, and he's just got personality. But he goes to the New York Mets, where the Mets are first in National League East. They're getting the Braves hoping to track them down. Nationals really put themselves out of it. So you got the Braves, potentially the Phillies, who did add as well. But the Mets haven't been this good since 2016, where they lost to the Cubs in the National League Championship Series. So the Mets add Javi Baez. He is, they got Francisco Lindor. They traded for him, signed him to a long-term deal. They got Pete Alonso at first. They got Conforto. They have obviously Jacob deGrom, who's the best pitcher in the world. He's out till September, but they still have him. They got Marcus Stroman, who's having a really good season, the former Blue Jay. So in their division, you got to look at it and say, well, we're going to win this division. We're going to make the playoffs. We might as well put ourselves in a position to have success. And Baez with Lindor, both of them are very great fielders. Lindor has struggled with the bat a bit, but I like the two of them together. I think they'll be very dynamic, and it should be a lot of fun to watch with those two on the field together. Rich Hill was also added from the Tampa Bay Rays at the deadline, so they do get a veteran pitcher who I could see them moving him to the bullpen come playoff time, where he can be a guy who can throw 2-3 innings on a day where a starter is not completely dialed in. So good add for the Mets. Again, that the Cubs continue to eliminate from their roster. And then there's San Francisco, adding Chris Bryant, the third baseman from the Cubs. And San Fran didn't do much in the pitching market. They've had some really good stories this year, in Anthony DeSclafani and Kevin Gausman, who's had just such a career turnaround. And it's been an incredible year, and they've really surpassed every expectation. They are 3 games up on the Dodgers at this point, and nobody had them making the playoffs. They still have Brandon Crawford. They still have Brandon Belt. They still have Buster Posey from their World Series teams. And it's just been incredible to watch what they've been able to do. And I love the mold of that team. They got a great manager in Gabe Kapler, who was fired in Philly really for no reason. And they've kind of have that chip on their shoulder, being a team that has been through wars, through tough times. Madison Bumgarner's gone. Johnny Cueto's gone. The Big Panda has departed the organization, but they still continue to battle. They still continue to have the chip on their shoulder. And Bryant's a guy that, people said who's been traded for Chicago for years. He's been on the trade market forever, and he just continued to play like a pro, which is what he is. And for the Giants, they had kind of a hole at third base, and I think he adds to their roster. They took 2 of 3 from the Houston Astros this weekend, who are no slouch, leaders in the NL West, one of the favorites in the American League, and they just continue to battle. It's really impressive to me what they did, but the Cubs offload from the roster. And not only that, they trade away their closer, one of the best in the game, in Craig Kimbrell. And they get a ton of prospects. I'm not going to go into all the prospects because all these guys they're not going to be major league players right now. However, for the Cubs, you look at it and say, well, this is what they did. And this is what they did in 2012, 2013, where they added Rizzo, they added Baez. Chris Bryant was drafted, but you add players that are not brand name right now, but you go through it, you play them a few years, and then you make your push. You add veterans like the Mets are doing, like adding Chris Bryant does right now. You add the veterans when your team is ready. And the Cubs, they've been struggling for a long time. They were 9 games back of the Milwaukee Brewers. And this is the model that won them a World Series. So I think this organization and the fan base can accept that. They aren't winning right now. You add pieces that you hope can be the centerpiece of your World Series team moving forward. So the Cubs offload, and really they deconstruct a team that won them the World Series after, like I said, 108 years, the longest drought in pro sports history. That brings us to the Washington Nationals. They trade John Lester, who, he's only been there 1 year. He hasn't been exactly a great story. They trade Brad Hand, the closer, to the Toronto Blue Jays. They desperately needed someone at the back end of the rotation. But the big names that the Dodgers traded, which really, one name didn't surprise me at all. One really did. Thursday, it was reported that Max Scherzer, the great longtime pitcher, 3-time Cy Young winner, one of the best pitchers in the last 30 to 40 years, was going to be traded to the San Diego Padres. And I said, well, this is huge. San Diego has been a team that's really been had their pedal to the metal, so to speak, over the last couple of years. They acquired Yu Darvish. They signed Manny Machado. They traded for Adam Frazier, most hits in Major League Baseball at the trade deadline. So they've been active. But getting Max Scherzer would really, send a message to this team that we're all in here. We think we can win a World Series this year. But the deal didn't go through. It couldn't be processed. They couldn't agree to terms. And Scherzer stayed out there. We didn't know he wanted to go to the West Coast. And big surprise, he gets traded to the Los Angeles Dodgers. And you look at, the rich just keep getting richer. I said to a friend, the rich are becoming Jeff Bezos, with the Dodgers getting Max Scherzer. They have Clayton Kershaw, who also has won 3 Cy Youngs. So they have 6 Cy Youngs there. They have Walker Buehler, who I think, other than DeGrom, is the best pitcher in baseball. He's better than Kershaw right now. It's not even close. He's 11-1 on the season with a sub-2.30 ERA. The guy has every pitch. He can blaze it by. He can throw off speed. The guy is just, if they started a series tonight, Walker Buehler would be pitching game one, not Scherzer, not Scherzer. It would be Walker Buehler. And so you get Buehler, Kershaw, Scherzer. You still have David Price in that rotation. You got Julio Urias, who has 13 wins, the most in baseball. And this is really a void to help. Trevor Bauer is unlikely to pitch again this year. He's dealing with a domestic disturbance / assault case, and it doesn't sound promising. The guy, they signed him to a big 2-year deal. We know he's an outspoken guy. I did not see this in his past. I did not see this coming. I didn't know this was the character of the guy, but they really needed a replacement for him because the rotation hasn't been that great recently. Kershaw has been dealing with injuries, and this team is World Series or bust. They're in that mold. I give credit to the organization. There's no salary cap in baseball, so you can spend as much money as you'd like. And they did. They spent a ton of money, trying to get better. And they won last year. They traded for Mookie Betts. They add significant pieces where they need them, and it got them over the top. And looking, not only do you get Max Scherzer, who, like I just said, is one of the best pitchers in the history of the game, but you get Trey Turner, a Gold Glove winning shortstop, who I don't get why the Nationals traded him. They have team control over him for another 2 years, arbitration eligible. And yeah, they get the number 1 and number 2 prospects in the Dodgers system, but you have a proven commodity in Trey Turner. You can start to build your team around him, hoping that you still have Trey Turner there, that maybe some free agents will want to come to Washington. You can get better sooner rather than later. And it's not a 4 to 5 year project here. But he gets moved to the Dodgers. And again, this gives him flexibility right now and in the future. So now you have Trey Turner, you have Corey Seager, you have Justin Turner. Sound like a pretty good infield. Cody Bellinger has been playing first base, but he's likely not going to play. He's batting 163 in the season. Can't play anywhere in the infield. He's been a disaster. But you look at that, that's a pretty damn good infield. And then, Mookie Betts in right, who's one of the best fielders in baseball. So this team is loaded completely. And the way it looks right now, we get 2 months of the season left. And 3 teams out of the National League West, that's Dodgers, Padres, and Giants, they're likely all going to make the playoffs. And really the biggest battle will be who's going to finish first in the National League West, Giants or Dodgers. And I think it will be the Dodgers. Again, it's a 3-game lead right now, but the Dodgers are just so loaded. And I don't see them losing many games down the stretch where I look at this team and say, who's going to beat them? Who's going to beat the Dodgers that many times? I think the Giants will hit more of a hiccup. Obviously, win this weekend. They've been beating the Dodgers a lot head-to-head lately, but the pitching, down the stretch, I think it's imperative for the Giants to win the division, because if it's Dodgers, Padres in a 1-game playoff, I obviously favor the Dodgers, but it's a 1 game. Who the hell knows? It's like the NFL. Anything can happen in those playoff games where it's just win or go home. And that's what's great about the wild card game is the Dodgers may be inferior. I mean, they're still a good team. The Padres are inferior, but they still have Fernando Tatis Jr. III. If Yu Darvish pitches a gem, maybe you get out of it. They acquire Jake Marisnick. They get Daniel Hudson out of their bullpen. Adam Frazier, you got Cronenworth, who's been great. Machado is having a great second half of the season. So there are bats that can do some damage, and it's 1 game. What do you throw? I don't think Buehler will have a crap game, but if Buehler goes out there, something happens, they got to go to their bullpen earlier, then it could be a disaster. So for the Giants, this season, it'll still be successful if you make it to the wild card game, but get to the playoffs, and this team still has championship mold. I mentioned Buster Posey. This guy is still as motivated as ever to win a World Series, another one, add to it, make it his 4th World Series. The same for Belt, the same for Crawford. They're in their last years of their contracts, and who knows with this Giants team, what a story it would be to look at it and say, the Red Sox and the Giants, to start the weekend, were at the top of their divisions. That's a pretty incredible story. And we'll see where it goes. But the National League West was the most compelling division, the most compelling story in baseball prior to the trade deadline. It remains it after the trade deadline as well. New York Yankees also acquired outfielder Joey Gallo from the Texas Rangers. He's, a left-handed bat they needed desperately. They've had Brett Gardner playing in left field forever. And, Brett's a good Yankee. He's only played for the Yankees over his career, but it was getting very stale. And he doesn't have a great arm. His bat isn't very good anymore. And although Gallo is another power bat, like Giancarlo Stanton, like Aaron Judge, the guy does have a better walk rate than the both of them. He draws a lot of walks. He does strike out a ton, but he will take walks. And he's a great outfielder. I think he's won Gold Gloves before in the field, and he's better than any outfielder they have. That includes Aaron Judge. His arm is better. He makes better reads, and he's playing left field at Yankee Stadium. It's not exactly a tough place, You know it when the ball is going out or not, because you hit one 230 to left at Yankee Stadium. It's like, Doink the Clown. Anybody can hit a freaking dinger to left. So it's not exactly like you're playing, the Green Monster in Fenway. So I look at the Yankees and look at the Blue Jays, and I think they're different, but they're also similar. The Yankees are desperate. They get Rizzo, they get Gallo, and they're desperate because in New York, it's never okay to have a disappointing season. It's never okay to rebuild. You can't do it. And to start the weekend, the Yankees were third in the American League East, behind Boston, behind the Tampa Bay Rays, and they remain third. But, they want to make a push for a wild card spot. They cannot miss the playoffs. And I think it's very unrealistic to think, well, we can surpass Tampa, we can surpass Boston, but maybe we can make a push for a wild card. Maybe Oakland stumbles down the stretch. Maybe the Rays fall off. Something happens with the Boston Red Sox pitching where we can make a move here. But, again, that's unlikely. And I think teams held on to their players for a long time, and that hurt certain teams. And I look at the Yankees and the Blue Jays in particular here. The Yankees, I think, would have made moves earlier, but teams felt they were still in a position to win. Texas, no, they stink. But they might have wanted to hold on and get the best possible deal for Joey Gallo, and that was 2 days before the trade deadline. Trading him a month ago, they probably don't get as good of a haul. Rizzo, I think the Cubs were very reluctant to part with them. They all went within a 2-day period of one another. And again, it's just nostalgia. You want to sell tickets. I think it'll be tougher to sell tickets down the stretch here with the Cubs team that is going to stink. So obviously that's a tougher sell. But so for the Yankees, I think it was out of desperation. You look at the Blue Jays, on the other hand, they get Brad Hand for Riley Adams, we see him, he played a little bit at the major league level this year, but he's basically a AAA catcher. Catcher is not a position that the Blue Jays have a position of strength with. Danny Jansen swinging the bat. He's basically as good as me out there. They have Alejandro Kirk, who it's really undetermined if this guy can be an everyday catcher in the major leagues yet. They got he got caught with his pants down there last year, but they got another catcher that they like. But I can't remember his name, so he can't be that damn good. So it's not exactly a position of strength for the Blue Jays. They get Joakim Soria at the deadline. He's another veteran relief arm. They need bullpen help all year, so that should help them. But their big addition was Jose Barrios from the Minnesota Twins. And they part, Simeon Woods Richardson, who's a 20-year-old pitcher who looks like he's a good prospect. Again, he's a prospect. He's not a major league player yet. This team wants to be competitive. And they also part with Austin Martin, who played at Vanderbilt, was drafted 5th overall by the Blue Jays last year. And he was really one of the most highly touted prospects in the organization. So it was not cheap, but Barrios has a 3.30 ERA. He's been a really consistent pitcher. I wouldn't call him an ace, but he's a great complementary star, and he's been a great pitcher in his own right throughout his career for the Minnesota Twins. So he's a guy that can fit into your everyday rotation. He's better than Ross Stripling. Him and Robbie Ray are similar, not in their pitching style, but I think when it comes to their effectiveness, Ray's been, the Blue Jays' best pitcher this year by a long shot. So he improves their pitching depth. You don't got to go to guys that you really don't trust. Barrios is a guy that can pitch every fifth day that you can have confidence in. So that's an upgrade. That's something that they can sell. But it is a major haul. But I think for the Blue Jays, they have him under team control for next year. So what they're saying really for me, the Blue Jays, is we want to be competitive down the stretch. Maybe we can make a push for the wild card. We got Vladimir Guerrero Jr., George Springer starting to swing the bat well. We got Bo Bichette. We have our position players are basically set. They don't have like I said, they don't have a catcher that you really trust. They don't really have a third baseman. They have Santiago Espinal has been playing there lately because Kevin Biggio has really just been a disaster. He doesn't have a position. You got Grichuk, who can play in the field or play designated hitter. So you have strengths, but I think this sets them up well for next season. It gives you another arm that you can say next year, we can start with Ryu. We can start with Barrios. They got to try to re-sign Robbie Ray. So you have 3 starters that you like. And then you add another one. You add at least one, potentially 2. Alek Manoah looks like a stud. I think he'll be in their rotation next year. So if you substitute Ross Stripling, you add a guy that, again, is not a Ross Stripling type, not a reclamation project, a guy of value, a guy of substance. Max Scherzer would be nice. I doubt he'll come to Toronto, but somebody that is not, well, I think this guy can be good. Well, I think we can turn him around. That's been the Blue Jays' MO for years. That's not what they need to do here. They need to add a guy of value. Obviously, the bullpen will be another story. I still think that needs to improve a ton. They're going to have a lot of turnover there, but it gives them another set position. And down the stretch, you add, you get Hand, you get Soria, you get Jose Barrios. So you've added to your team. You've shown them that, we're not dead on this year yet either. It does 2 good things. Tells your clubhouse that, we're going to try to make the playoffs this year. That's our goal. But next year, we're going to be aggressive. We're a team that we think we're on the precipice of winning here, being a winning organization again, like 2015, like 2016. And this just puts them closer to that ultimate goal. So I like the ad. I do think they paid a heavy price, and it's really too early to say if it paid off. If Barrios pitches this year and they miss the playoffs, okay, that's okay. But next year, Barrios pitches, well, but the Blue Jays miss the playoffs again and he walks, and then you see Austin Martin become, an all-star level player at third base for the Minnesota Twins, that's a disaster. It really is, because you had a guy, he was drafted 5th overall. This guy wasn't, baseball drafts don't get the pub that hockey or the NFL do. Well, really, hockey's behind the NBA and the NFL, but it's still, you can draft really good players. Like Bryce Harper went 2nd overall. Pretty good pick. Like you can draft. I've had arguments with friends before saying, well, baseball drafts, it doesn't really matter because it doesn't matter who you take in the first round. Well, yes, it does. Because you can get diamonds in the rough. You can get Bryce Hart. It's not even diamonds. You can get good players. Mike Trout went high. Bryce Harper went high. I'm not saying Austin Martin's going to be a stud, but he was drafted 5th overall for a reason. He's not a scrub. So we'll wait and see what happens there. But I do like the move for the Blue Jays. You want to improve. As of right now, you look at them. They sit 4.5 back of the Oakland Athletics. 3.5 back of the Oakland Athletics for the final wildcard spot. So they're in it. And they've won 4 in a row. They beat Boston Thursday night. Then they sweep the Kansas City Royals. Now, sweeping Kansas City, I'm not going to, put that too high in the threshold. Kansas City stinks. Let's just be honest. But a win's a win. You can only beat it on your schedule. And they have one of the easiest remaining schedules in baseball. This week they got 4 against the Cleveland Indians. Then they play Boston next weekend, so that's tough. But you got the Angels, Mariners. So you have opponents that you can win, that you can beat here. You need to take advantage of this week part of your schedule, and that's how you're going to make the playoffs. They're going to have a 600 winning percentage down the stretch to make the playoffs. And because you got the Yankees, who are 2.5 back, so they're ahead of them. Seattle's tied with them at 3.5. So it's a tight race right now to see if they'll make it. Over the weekend, in a crazy development, the Tampa Bay Rays, sweep the Boston Red Sox. And the Rays, this is when they start to play great. The Rays are still such a good team. They made the World Series last year. they have players that you don't even know. Tyler Glasnow is going to need Tommy John surgery, but they still continue to win. And that's the crazy thing about them, is that they just find ways to win. And you look now, Blue Jays sit 8 back of Tampa Bay. So it's unlikely you're not catching them. Chicago are 9 up on Cleveland. That's done. Houston's 4.5 up on the Oakland Athletics. So that a lot of these division races are dead. The one you can look at, the Mets have a 3.5 game lead on Philly, 4 on Atlanta. That's not a closed open and shut case yet. Milwaukee, 7 on Cincinnati. That's done. So San Francisco, Los Angeles. So really 2 divisions are really up for grabs unless the Rays just completely, teeter and fall off, which I don't think will happen. They got that mold of being a team that's going to make the playoffs be a factor. So we'll see. Blue Jays will play the Indians in just under 40 minutes. It's, a holiday here in Canada. So we'll see the two play a little afternoon game where for the Blue Jays, it will be Robbie Ray. He's 9-5 in the year against Eli Morgan, who has struggled this year for the Indians. So Blue Jays afternoon matinee for us Canadians. And really a great trade deadline, something that the Major League Baseball should be happy about. They should continue to have a set date. I don't know why it took so damn long for this to happen, but they've done it. It's set. And I think baseball is set for a good couple months here. Obviously, the NFL is back, but the NFL never really goes away. The NFL is a constant theme. But that's something that it's preseason. It's not everybody's invested. Thursday night, it's Cowboys Steelers in the Hall of Fame game, preseason, of course. And then we got CFL. First game in 20 months between the Hamilton Tiger Cats and Winnipeg Blue Bombers, a rematch of the 2019 Grey Cup. The computer and TV will be going that night. And also got women's soccer that night too. Gee, I forgot about that. So it's gonna be a night but I'm excited for the NFL preseason. I never watch preseason sports. I'm going to watch NFL this year because I'm jacked up. I want to see Jordan Love play. I'd like to see what Davis Mills has in Houston, what he looks like as a rookie quarterback. Does Christian McCaffrey get some reps after being injured last year? It's just so many good storylines. And, I was going to pivot to the NBA, but quickly today there was news. Carson Wentz of the Indianapolis Colts. He was injured last week, just said he was going to be sitting out, week to week, but it's announced he's going to have surgery on a broken foot and he is out 5 to 12 weeks, meaning that more than likely, unless something changes dramatically, Carson Wentz is going to miss the start of the season for the Indianapolis Colts. If you remember, he was traded from Philly to Indianapolis in the offseason. He was reunited with former offensive coordinator Frank Reich, who was there when he was going to win his MVP and ultimately where Philly won the Super Bowl. So now you look at it, and on the roster currently, you have, Jacob Eason, who, very limited reps in the NFL, a guy who was with the Chargers originally. Now he's with the Colts. He's a backup quarterback at best. You got Sam Ellinger. He was the quarterback at Texas the last 4 seasons. A 5th-round pick this past year in the draft. So no NFL experience, hasn't taken a snap. I'm sure we'll see him in the preseason, but it wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't make an NFL roster. I never thought he was that good of a quarterback in college. Texas never had any success with him at the helm, and they're playing in the Big 12, not like they're playing the SEC, which they might be doing soon. So he's unproven. Then you have Brett Hundley, who was a backup quarterback. They just signed. He was backup quarterback to Aaron Rodgers for a while. He was a backup quarterback to Russell Wilson in Seattle. So they have 3 quarterbacks on the roster right now that have no NFL experience. And I read today, well, maybe they need to make a push for a great backup, but really the best backup quarterback in the NFL, or one of the best anyway, is Marcus Mariota. He was a quarterback at Tennessee, former 2nd overall pick out of Oregon, but he's the backup to Derek Carr in Oakland. And if I'm Oakland, I'm not parting with Marcus Mariota. You only have one quarterback. Well, when there's an injury, you want to have somebody that you feel comfortable with. Mariota had 2 starts last year where he played really good football in Derek Carr's absence. So having a security blanket is so important. And there's so many teams that don't have that. And clearly the Colts are one of them, but unless the Raiders get a haul or, they get a high draft pick, or the Colts feel desperate enough, because, 5 to 12 weeks is that's a long timeline. If it's 5 weeks, that puts them around the start of the NFL season. Obviously, you'd have no reps, very little practice reps, no preseason reps. So I doubt he'd be ready week 1. But week 2 or 3, can you survive with Jacob Eason or a Brett Hundley at quarterback? Maybe. But if it's 12 weeks, that's 2 months. That means you're missing the entire month of September, potentially into October. That's 4 to 5 games where if your record is crap and you have a quarterback who doesn't have a lot of reps this is his first year with a new team, you're so behind the 8 ball. You're in a weak division. That's the only thing you can really say. But Tennessee will be in full force. Tannehill, you got Julio Jones down there, Derrick Henry running roughshod. I find it very hard to believe that the Colts would be able to rally, not even potentially win the division, but just make the playoffs as a wild card team. I think it's long odds for that to happen. So they're going to have to figure something out here. Do they go with Eason and hope that he can string it together? Can they lure a veteran out of retirement? I doubt it. We saw that the last time a team did that, it was Jay Cutler with the Dolphins. That was a flat out disaster. Obviously, Carson Wentz is their quarterback. That's their guy. So it would be basically a month fix where a guy needs to start at quarterback. So maybe there's a cut during training camp or something where they pick that guy up and he's their starter because he's got some experience. But right now, they are in a tough spot. They're in a very tough spot because they don't have a whole lot of options. And I'm interested to see where this goes because this has become one of the more intriguing training camp questions is what do the Colts do at quarterback? Because Carson Wentz is out. They got, Jonathan Taylor. They got good options, but they got a strong defense with Darius Leonard, one of the best middle linebackers in football. But you need a quarterback to win in the NFL. And, Carson Wentz already had enough question marks. And now you don't have him. So a lot of questions in Indianapolis who have big expectations this year to really make an impact. And we'll see what they do to help that roster. The NBA last week also took center stage. It was the 2021 NBA draft where Detroit Pistons took Cade Cunningham first overall. He's now got the nickname Motorcade, which I think is great. I think, he's played at Oklahoma State. He's got a lot of good intangibles being compared to Grant Hill. Grant Hill is obviously a really good NBA player, not exactly a superstar, but a good NBA player. Then you had the Houston Rockets take Jalen Green. Cleveland Cavs took Evan Mobley out of USC, the big man, number 3. And the intrigue started with the Toronto Raptors, who it looked, all points, whatever that stupid saying is, pointed to the Raptors taking Jalen Suggs out of Gonzaga. Really an elite guy who's got some scoring ability. He's fun to watch. But they decided not to go with Jalen Suggs, not to go with conventional wisdom. And they took Scotty Barnes out of Florida State. And this guard is more of a prototypical point guard. He gets more assists. He's got a bigger body than Suggs. But one thing, his shot is not great, but we've seen the Raptors take guys like OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, and they can nurture them and create and make them better shooters, make them better players. Kawhi Leonard was drafted, with the thought San Antonio knew that he wasn't a very good shooter, but now you look at him, he's a better than average 3-point shooter, great at the free throw line, and it's one of the biggest strengths of his game. So they're clearly banking on Scotty Barnes developing into a better talent because right now on paper, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that, they take him over Jalen Suggs. I think it's a mistake. I think Suggs is an elite guy. I think you're going to miss out on, his potential. I would have taken Suggs. Orlando did with the next pick. So they clearly had him on the board. I think they're surprised that he was available. So they take him at number 5. They really get a gift. And they had 2 picks in the top 8. Josh Giddey went to Oklahoma City 6. Then you had Golden State take Jonathan Kuminga out of the G League. And Orlando took Franz Wagner out of Michigan. His brother, Moritz Wagner, plays in the NBA already. He's bounced around, played for the Lakers, played for Washington, played for the Boston Celtics, now with the Chicago Bulls. But Franz is a guy that can spread the floor. He can shoot the three, and he was on that great Michigan team last year. So he's a name that rings out. But the draft was really overshadowed by a deal prior to the night starting where the Washington Wizards traded Russell Westbrook to the Los Angeles Lakers in exchange for Kyle Kuzma, former 21st overall pick, Montrezl Harrell, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and the 22nd pick in Thursday night's draft. So this brings Westbrook onto a team with LeBron James, with Anthony Davis. So 3 players that basically make up their entire salary cap. So they're going to have to find fringe players, play for league minimum, find the veterans exemption, go over the luxury tax, because this team is cash strapped now. But they didn't have that third option last year. LeBron was injured. Anthony Davis was out. They didn't have a guy to step up. They hope Kuzma could do it, but they've been so frustrated with him, with his inconsistency, that they were ready to part with him, and they ultimately did. And for the Wizards, they make the playoffs, but they got Bradley Beal. Clearly, they didn't see Russell Westbrook as the guy to lead them into success, and they decided to part with him. But intrigue here is with the Lakers. They still got LeBron, who's going to be 37. Anthony Davis is a great player, but he's injury prone. We'll see what he can do to kind of improve that next year. But I look at this team and say, who can shoot? LeBron's strength is not shooting the basketball. Russell Westbrook's strength, even though he shoots a high volume, he's not a great shooter. He's a great driver of the basketball. But when it comes to shooting threes, even shooting a mid-range jump shot, that's not a great skill of him. And Anthony Davis is the best shooter of the 3. But that's not, his low post game is what makes him so successful. So I look at this team and say, NBA teams are winning now with shooters. Giannis Antetokounmpo wasn't the best shooter, but Chris Middleton is a great high volume 3-point shooter. Jrue Holiday can knock down his threes. PJ Tucker is a good guy that can make threes on that winning team. And, even the Golden State model where everybody in that team could shoot. And driving to the basket is going to be, I think, the emphasis of this team. But what if a team builds a wall and just says, we're going to give you anything you want on the outside? LeBron will make shots. He's still LeBron James. But I don't see this making the Lakers. I've heard, the Lakers are now the second biggest threat to the Nets. Well, I don't believe that's true. I think I still would put the Milwaukee Bucks ahead of them because Milwaukee beat Brooklyn last year. Yes, Kyrie was out. Yes, James Harden was compromised, but you can't guarantee. There's no guarantee in sports. Injuries happen, and there's no asterisks around a team that just because this team should have won if this player wasn't injured. Well, it doesn't matter. Were you healthy when you got there? The Phoenix Suns, Milwaukee Bucks were healthy in the final. Milwaukee won. Doesn't matter that LeBron James wasn't there or Golden State or whoever else you think is better. Milwaukee won the championship. And I look at this team and say, injuries they're not a big threat because they can't shoot the basketball. And that's the most important aspect of the game. Yeah. Okay, great. You can rebound. Great. You can assist the basketball, but what else can you do? Can you shoot for me? And if the answer is, well, if you even pause a little bit, it's such a scary position. And I worry for this team because I think LeBron, Westbrook, Anthony Davis, who can shoot? And we'll see what other teams do because free agency starts today where, the likes of Kyle Lowry's on the board. Does Ben Simmons ultimately get traded from the Philadelphia 76ers? So there's still a lot of things to happen here. Where does DeMar DeRozan go? But we need to see what teams look like and kind of reassess and reevaluate. But, having Russell Westbrook, having LeBron, having Anthony Davis, then, potentially adding Carmelo Anthony, like it's been discussed, who's a bench player at this point, that doesn't scare me. I'm not scared of the Lakers if I'm out west. If I'm Phoenix, I would rather see the Lakers add Chris Paul. Because is he a great 3-point shooter? No, but he can shoot. His mid-range game is still on point. And I think he can give LeBron a break from the basketball. We don't have to worry that he's going to fire up a really stupid shot. Westbrook does that a lot, and I don't know how that's going to gel with LeBron. LeBron is passive aggressive. LeBron is at times confrontational. So we'll see how that goes. but definitely intrigued for sure to see where this team goes. Like I said, free agency, you can start talking with teams tonight at 6:00. So I'm sure those deals will pile in soon after, because as we know, there's no league better at tampering than the National Basketball Association. To hockey briefly here before we wrap up the show. Really, there's a few signed. The Maple Leafs got active over the weekend. They signed Ondrej Kase, formerly of Anaheim and Boston, to a 1-year, $1.25 million contract. Kase is another small forward, so that doesn't surprise me that the Leafs liked him and had him on their board. But he does have some skill. I think he's looking at this team. He's a bottom six forward, so you hope that he can be. I'll give him this credit. I look at him and say he's a guy who can play on that third line, and maybe he can add some offense. He's a shooter. If it's Mikheyev and Engvall and whoever else they got on there, he's a guy that can score. You can't have a third line of Mikheyev, Engvall, and throw anybody else out there that they have currently on their bottom six. Simmons, potentially. That line is never scoring a goal, because Engvall and Mikheyev have no hands. And then you have Simmons, who needs guys to distribute the offense for him. Kase at least has some offensive firepower, a little offensive upside. He has had some injury problems, but he is better than some of the other small forwards that they signed in the past. So good for Kyle Dubas for going out there, adding a player to the roster. I give him that credit. And he's a guy that can potentially augment their third line. So not a bad signing. They also added Nick Ritchie. It's a 2-year deal worth $2.5 million a year. Again, formerly of Anaheim and Boston. So they're going to the same tree here. Ritchie was not, he was going to be a restricted free agent, but did not get tendered a qualifying offer from the Bruins. So they let him walk for nothing. And Ritchie is, when he's on, he's great. I like a lot of his game. He's big, he's heavy. He's a guy that Toronto could use. I look at him and say, could he be a Zach Hyman type? He's different than Hyman because he's a little bit thicker. He is a guy that will muck it up in the corners. He's not afraid to mix it up. I think you'll look at their roster right now, which again, it can change, but I think opening night, Ritchie is on a line with Matthews and Marner. And I think that will work because he can play to the net. He needs to go close to the goal line. He needs to get close to the puck, get rebounds. When there's a rebound, go in the corner, get them the puck, give it back to them. He's a guy that will finish his checks. And when he's playing well, he's great. When he's not, he's really slow and he looks out of place and you're kind of wondering, why is this guy in the NHL? So it's hit or miss with Nick Ritchie, but I think he'll play with Matthews and Martin. The way I look at their team right now, you can have Tavares, you can have Nylander on that second unit. Who they play with is really up in the air at this point. Maybe Kase, maybe I'm wrong and they don't put Kase in the third. Maybe they want Kase up with Tavares and Nylander and have more of an offensive second line. But you got Ritchie, I think he's a top six forward for this team at least. You got enough of Nick Ritchie's on the bottom of their lineup. I'd rather have Ritchie than Simmons on the top line. Am I convinced that will happen? No, but I think he's a guy that he's not Zach Hyman, but he plays a similar style. And if you want him to, you need him to buy in. You need him to get more fit for sure. And that at least, so if he can come in and can't fit and, ready to play, I think that would be a big deal for Toronto. And you got to hope that he can fill the void of Zach Hyman and at least do some of the little things that he did so well. Jack Eichel, to finish off the podcast, Jack Eichel released a statement this weekend from his agent basically saying that, Jack is frustrated. He hasn't been traded. He wants to have surgery, so he's ready for next season. Buffalo is not allowing him to do that because they feel he doesn't need it. And he wants to be traded right away because wherever he does get traded, he wants to be ready to play for, by opening night. And this is a really cat and mouse here because it wouldn't shock me if Buffalo still has Jack Eichel come opening night because they want a haul for him. And clearly, you see, free agency is winding down here. There's only so much money to go around, and he's got a $10 million cap hit That's not easy to fit in a flat cap. LA signed Philip Danault. Vegas made moves to improve. They don't have a whole lot of cap room. Anaheim is still there, but do they want to plunge for a guy like Jack Eichel, who's kind of been a nuisance in Buffalo? And I think there's a couple stop signs there that would make me worry about him long term. So I think this is a cat and mouse. If his medical team feels he needs surgery, that's his prerogative. But if Buffalo's feel that he doesn't, well, I can't really blame them. And even if they did allow him to have surgery, say Buffalo did right now, he's not going to want to return to Buffalo. They've offloaded. Sam Reinhart's gone. Ristolainen's gone. Linus Ullmark is gone. That team is going to be terrible. You look at Buffalo and Arizona, they're competing to see who will be worse next year. They still have Dahlin. Arizona still has Jacob Chikrin. Other than that, it's pretty freaking bare. So we'll see. But this will continue to be the big hockey story where I will see where this goes. But I'm excited to see where this goes down the stretch and if Jack Eichel ultimately gets moved this offseason. But again, it wouldn't surprise me to see him in camp day one, likely not in the ice, but still property of the Buffalo Sabres. Hope everybody enjoyed the show today. We'll be back tomorrow with Seamus to talk some Breaking Bad. So I hope you guys are ready for that. A couple of really good episodes to talk about tomorrow. Thinking about doing a roundtable at the end of the week. It's going to be about, I'm going to be doing a series of podcasts about NHL divisions so far and what teams have done well, what they haven't done well, what we think of every team and their progress and signings, departures, things of that nature. So that should be Friday with a number of guests. So get ready for that one. I'll keep you guys posted as the week goes on. But as always, thank you guys for the support. Always appreciate. Leave your comments about my Olympic takes or anything that was crazy that I said today. But happy New Brunswick Day. Take care, and we'll talk soon.